what exactly has happened, because the question in all of your mind is what has happened and what is likely to happen. So I want to begin by saying that to get a sense of what has happened, you must have a complete picture of what has happened. You have been getting the news on television, but there are a lot of small details which you may not be getting on television. So it's important to come on the digital medium and share those details with you. Because sometimes what happens is on television, we don't get the time, we don't get the context. There's a discussion or debate that is going on, and then those small details which come later after the live coverage get lost in the period of the live coverage. So this video is very important for you to get a complete picture of what has happened in the last 48 hours. Now, therefore, this video starts with the early morning of 10th May. Early morning means very early in the hours on 10th May. So you will remember, viewers, on 9th of May, on the previous night, again around 8:30, right up to about 2 o'clock in the morning, we were under a series of these drone attacks. There were two kinds of drones which were sent by Pakistan. These are Turkish drones. They were either what are called surveillance drones, or these were armed drones. The armed drones carry a payload anywhere between 2 to 5 kilograms. You know, they can have some debilitating effect. They can cause damage. Now, those drone attacks that happened on the intervening 9th and 10th of May had led to some civilian injuries. We saw visuals from like this which came in from Firozpur, where there were injuries. When the drone lands, it's near a car, and people were getting very angry that what is Pakistan doing and what is our government doing. At this point of time, we have to decide how far to escalate and to which way to escalate. It is in this period that a very important decision was taken by Narendra Modi in consultation with the three service chiefs, the Chief of Defence Staff, the Defence Minister, and of course NSA Ajit Doval, that we have to climb up the escalation ladder. So what happens is, by this time, you will remember, we have already made Pakistan quite vulnerable because we have destroyed the air defence systems of Lahore the previous night. Then the big decision happens that it is trying to deploy the BrahMos. The BrahMos missile is the most important part of our missile arsenal in the country. It had originally been developed by India and Russia, and it is called the BrahMos, and it is considered to be parallel to what is called the Brahmastra, which is known for devastating power, and it's a power which is used only under dire circumstances. When you're really under challenge and you want to immobilize the enemy, what do? You deploy the BrahMos. The BrahMos missile has great speed. It travels between 2.8 to 3 Mach, that many times the speed of sound. It travels in a very high velocity. And the most dangerous part about the BrahMos for Pakistan is Pakistan has no ability to detect the BrahMos. In fact, there has been, what I believe, an operation earlier to test the radar catching ability of the Pakistanis vis-a-vis the BrahMos. So in March, if I'm not mistaken, in March 2022, there was an incident, and I'm giving you the full background here because my idea is to share all the knowledge with you in this particular video. In March 9th, 2022, an incident had happened where this same supersonic cruise BrahMos missile had been launched, quote-unquote, accidentally from Ambala in Haryana. It flew 100 kilometers over Indian territory and went over 130 kilometers or so into Pakistani territory, and it landed in a place called Mia Channu in the Punjab province, and the Pakistani radar failed to detect it at any stage of this whole operation because it goes so fast. And the BrahMos missile is such a missile that it can fly at a 10-meter height from the ground. It can also fly at a 15-meter height from the ground. So it cannot be found. At that time, the Pakistanis did a press conference. The Indians had become so technologically advanced that the BrahMos came into their territory and they couldn't find it. Anyway, now to cut the long story short, somewhere I believe between 9th night and 10th morning, the critical decision was taken by the Modi government that let's go ahead and hit the command structures of Pakistan, of their avionics. And I had come on air the next morning saying, and we showed you the video, that precision strikes, this has been the third range of strikes on Pakistan had happened, and I named the air bases. I named Pakistan Air Force Base Rafiki, visuals of that, Pakistan Air Force Base in Murid, Pakistan Air Force Base in Rahim Yar Khan, Pakistan Air Force Base in Sukur, and Pakistan Air Force Base in Chunian. But most importantly of all of these Air Force bases, the most important from a Pakistani perspective was the Pakistan Air Force Base in Noor Khan, Rawalpindi, which is known as the Chalala Air Base of Pakistan. Now, this is the most important air base of Pakistan. It basically is the whole strategic center of their avionics and logistics. These were all a number of strikes, and then later there were additional strikes confirmed in places like Jacobabad, in Bholari, in Skardu. All these strikes that we have carried out this time, we know where to hit in Pakistan. Because you see, we have done a very detailed intelligence assessment, which means we've got signal intelligence, we've got interception intelligence, and we have human intelligence. We have a lot of people in Pakistan giving us the information. So we know where their basic, most important Air Force installations are. When Chaklala was hit near Rawalpindi, that is when the Pakistanis got extremely nervous. Extremely nervous. I don't know whether we already hit their nuclear infrastructure or we were about to hit their nuclear infrastructure, but the fact was that the Pakistanis felt that we were minutes away from striking their nuclear command and control assets. And this is all that Pakistan has got left, their nuclear command and control assets. You see, viewers, Pakistan has been presenting itself to the world as the center of the Islamic bomb, the Islamic nuclear infrastructure of the world, and it wants to sell its wares to countries like Iran or any other countries, whatever. The fact of the matter is, there was an immediately nervous Pakistani response, and calls to Washington went. We at that time had intercepted all the high-end, high-alert communications. Pakistani military networks were under our watch, and they said that they need to intervene. And then the Pakistanis urgently, this happens by now by the early morning of 9, the Pakistani urgently called the US and say to the US that we are going to be under attack and our nuclear installations are going to be under attack. And J.D. Vance's office communicates something to the effect like something important has happened. This is a message that's going around that something important has happened, which is necessitating a very immediate American intervention. So there was basically a threat that was put out. I wouldn't even use the word threat, nuclear alert which was put out by Pakistan. Washington said we will intervene directly, and then they told Islamabad that you have to go, you have to try and de-escalate, you have to call the Indians, you have to use the hotlines which exist. You have existing hotlines which are going on between your militaries. Use the hotlines and go to India. There was some initial resistance. The Pakistanis wanted Americans to intervene. America told Pakistan directly intervene, and at 3:35 on our time, Indian Standard Time, the Pakistani Director General Military Operations, then Major General Kashif Abdullah, he makes an urgent and immediate phone call to Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai, who is the Indian Director General of Military Operations. Later, this call gets confirmed by the Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri during his press conference. This is effectively a informal laying down of arms that the Pakistanis have done. They've said, we don't want to be hit more, we want a ceasefire. Now, India is clear at that time. There is no third party. If you're hearing Donald Trump make claims about solving a 1,000-year-old dispute now, and that he is going to work his phones to solve a 1,000-year-old Kashmir dispute, etc., it is simply Donald Trump overplaying his card. You saw my first angry reaction when Donald Trump issued the press release at 5:30 on Truth Social. I will talk about that also later. But I still believe that we must accept that while the Americans have simply nudged, or rather some people say instructed, some people say ordered the Pakistanis to contact the Indians, the Pakistanis were told to contact the Indians directly, which they did. They laid down their arms, and then that's where there is a little bit of a slip up, because Donald Trump should have released his comment or his Truth Social comment after the statement from the Indian side, but Donald Trump, being Donald Trump, went and made a press release at 5:30 p.m. Now, why did Donald Trump issue out the press release? Why was it made to look like America has negotiated the settlement? Well, because America wanted it to look like America had negotiated the settlement. That was a very important day for Donald Trump. He was expecting to be seen as the author of two major ceasefires, Back channel work was going on by the White House to get Putin to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine, and back channel talks were going on, and Donald Trump then felt that if India and Pakistan also agree to a ceasefire of sorts, then it will be a diplomatic coup for him. The Ministry of External Affairs statement was preempted by Donald Trump, and immediately a very relieved Foreign Minister of Pakistan put out this tweet in which he profusely thanked the Americans. After all of this, you saw a very brief statement come out from the Indian side confirming the ceasefire. Remember, it was only a three-four lines of a statement from the Indian side. It was not very detailed. No questions were taken, which means we were being reactive rather than setting the agenda. So there was a little bit of a communication gap going on at this point of time. And now the input which I wish to share with you, I have it from my very reliable sources, ladies and gentlemen. And all of yesterday I kept speaking to my sources, and in this notebook I have made some very extensive notes of what happened after the ceasefire. So what happened after the ceasefire? Announcement was made by Donald Trump, and the statement of the Pakistanis thanking the Americans profusely. The Chinese got very irritated. They were very angry. The Chinese told the Pakistanis very strongly, a phone call was made to Shehbaz Sharif, that this is an act of diplomatic transgression by you. You are being seen to be too much with the Americans on the American side, and you have denied us any role, whereas we are the ones who are investing in the CPEC in Balochistan area, and we continue to support you. We have issued a statement, and a statement was issued yesterday by the Chinese confirming that they will stand by the independence and sovereignty of Pakistan. That was seen to be a statement that was aimed at letting Pakistan harden its position. But you see, Pakistan had allowed the involvement of the Americans and gone on to the American side. What happens interestingly is, after the phone call with the Chinese and between the Chinese and the Americans, the ceasefire violations start. When do the ceasefire violations start? Yesterday. Anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30. By 7:30 to 7:45 to 8:30, that is on the 10th of May, there is news of extensive ceasefire violations. And first it comes, of course, there are reports from Poonch Rajouri side, and then there is Samba which gets recorded, and then after some time we hear of explosions being heard in Srinagar. They were not explosions, they were our air defense artillery, which Omar Abdullah referred to in this tweet, which were basically firing away. Sounds like explosions. These were our ADA systems taking on the drones that were coming in from the Pakistani side. And then it was reported in Rajasthan, there was blackouts in Ambala, and then it was reported in Jaisalmer that there had been some kind of a missile transgression, and finally it was reported in Bhuj. So our entire western sector became very active, and despite no official confirmation from the government sources, I am very proud that the Indian media put out the news about these violations of the ceasefire by the Pakistanis. Did the violation of the ceasefire by the Pakistanis happen on Chinese instructions? We can't say. Did the Chinese egg on the Pakistanis to transgress the border, to transgress the LOC, to keep the situation hot? We can't say. But one thing is clear, the Chinese were very irritated, extremely angry and upset that Pakistan had sort of moved across more or less to the American side. Interestingly here, you see, we have our own back channel going on at that time, and NSA Ajit Doval spoke to Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, and there were statements put out on all sides. So by now it became a big power game, India and China talking to each other, Wang Yi speaking to NSA National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, both issue a statement, and then almost by default, within an hour, you see the ceasefire violations, the number go down. By 10 o'clock, there was again contact established with the Pakistanis, with maybe the Pakistanis being nudged a little bit by the Chinese to stop the ceasefire violations, and a fresh attempt at enforcing the ceasefire happens effective 10:30 p.m. on the night of the 10th of May. Now, this is the entire sequence of events, and that fragile ceasefire continues as of this moment. But nobody should question whether the ceasefire happened. You see, it's very easy to blame the media. media is hyping up things. It's not true. You see these visuals from Jaisalmer this morning, where you have the missile that came in from the Pakistani side being exploded, and these visuals prove it, that yes, the ceasefire did happen. There is enough debris on the ground to prove that there was another round of ceasefire which happened. A few things before I summarize this video. A, there is nothing called a formal ceasefire from the Indian side. All that we have said is that there is, as of now, there is no open, active situation from our side. That does not mean we are committed to an indefinite ceasefire. This will be subject to review constantly. Second point, the Pakistanis were very close to having their nuclear installations attacked. And if you go after the nuclear installations, the Pakistanis realized, and government sources also telling me, that India was very ready for yet another round of strikes, and we had everything on our target. We had Pakistan's energy infrastructure, Pakistan's economic infrastructure, and what the government calls Pakistan's deeper strategic infrastructure, which is an euphemism for their nuclear facilities. So if this had gone on for any longer, given the interceptions we have from the Pakistani side, it was very clear that it is not just the Pakistani fear that their nuclear installations would be targeted. It was a very real possibility that their nuclear infrastructure would have been targeted. So as of now, I continue to believe that we have the upper hand. We are also very cognizant of the fact that the Pakistani internal politics is not stable. You have seen videos like this, where Shahid Khatak, the Pakistani member of parliament, called Nawaz Sharif a coward, a person who does not have the courage to take Narendra Modi's name, a Buzdil, a Kayer, and also a Gidar. Now, these are not ordinary statements. You've also seen videos of Pakistani politicians crying in parliament. You saw the video of Major Tahir Iqbal, who was seen in tears in the Pakistani parliament, and he says that I pray that Allah protects the Pakistanis. There was a sense of helplessness. You've also seen the audio statement of a Pakistani former air marshal after the round of BrahMos strikes, where he says, we are rattled. We have nothing to defend ourselves with. Now, regardless of how much propaganda the Pakistani intelligence establishment, ably led by Hamid Mir, who is a shameless Pakistani journalist, who despite being targeted and the ISI tried to kill him, is a loyal bootlegger of the Pakistani intelligence establishment, despite whatever they put out there. The reality is that Pakistan was hit. They lost all their defenses. Their internal polity is up in arms. And therefore, I would watch the political situation in Pakistan extremely closely. Our digital video team has done a great job of putting together a very interesting video sequence of Shehbaz Sharif. And there are in that video sequence the statement of Shehbaz Sharif, which was supposed to go at 8 p.m. yesterday, Pakistan time, eventually went, I think, around 11 p.m. yesterday, Pakistan time, because the Chinese told him to put it on hold. Now, there are three things you need to look at in this video. His eyes are shifty, moving from left to right, like he's taking instructions. This is not normal eye movement. You can get any psychologist or any optometrist, for that matter, to check this out. The second point which comes out is that there are numerous jump cuts. There are jump cuts, ladies and gentlemen, is television lingo for edits. So that speech is not one sequence. There are 12, 13, 15 jump cuts or edits in that sequence, which means Shehbaz Sharif stopped and started and stopped and started and stopped and started, was being instructed. It was like reading a film script, and it was like an actor being told to put out a performance, and that performance was a very ineffective performance. So I believe he put out that statement under pressure from the army, because there are 3 or 4 references to Asif Munir, and to the greatness of Asif Munir. And I would therefore not be wrong in my assessment that Shehbaz Sharif and the civilian establishment in Pakistan is at its weakest ever. We will have to watch what happens with Asif Munir. Another thing we should watch out for is whether Asif Munir, who has now been strengthened by the Pakistani Supreme Court with new powers that allows him to arrest Pakistani civilians under military rules, will use these newly acquired powers against the politicians or the ruling establishment of Pakistan, who would be aware of his enhanced powers and his enhanced control and use abilities today within the power establishment of Pakistan. So ladies and gentlemen, will there be a coup in Pakistan? I don't know. I am of a firm view there is an effective coup, and we must look at Pakistan from that perspective. What about us? Is this over? It's not over. The Air Force has put out a statement today saying Operation Sindoor is on. Every reference to Operation Sindoor is in an ongoing context. And that is important. Therefore, it is an ongoing context. It's like a volcano from an active phase to a dormant phase, but not in a passive phase yet. So the situation is very dormant. We will all have to be very clear and cognizant of that present and ever-present danger that the situation presents to all of us. The Prime Minister has not put out a final statement yet, which means the Prime Minister is waiting and watching every single thing that is going on along the border. And even this morning, he has had a big, long meeting with the CDS, with the Raksha Mantri and others. We will have to do a clear and close assessment of our strategic communication, our global outreach, and our overall security, internal and external security apparatus, which includes influence, communications, media, outreach, and global presence. It will all have to be done as a part of the constant relook at where we are placed. We are moving from being a middle power to a great power. Towards being a great power, there are lessons in all of this. I also believe at some point, I'm sure the Foreign Ministry will issue a statement contradicting what Donald Trump has said, to put a little bit of a wet towel over his grand expectations that he is going to be a global peacemaker. Why did Donald Trump issue the statement yesterday? Because he was not getting the concession that he wanted from Putin, and he needs a desperate role to be seen to be handling and organizing ceasefires in different parts of the world. Have we handed him one? Not yet. Have the Pakistanis given us a ceasefire? Yes, because they cannot take on the might of India. They cannot take on the might of India. There are no two ways of looking at it. Their economy is crumbling. They've got an IMF additional bailout of 1 billion. But what is 1 billion when compared to the 140, 150 billion that they owe to the world? They don't even have reserves of 10 billion. And with this kind of a situation, they can't even cover 2 months of imports. The kind of expenses they would have incurred in the last 2 or 3 weeks would easily shave off about $500 million from there. So Pakistan is in a very precarious state, and all viewers watch very closely what happens in Balochistan, because in Balochistan the visuals that are coming in are showing an all-out assault. I am told that 4/5 or almost all the national highways of Balochistan are now blocked. And therefore, the world will keep a close watch on Balochistan. While we speak about POK, it is Balochistan which is even more vulnerable. And Balochistan is imploding. And that is why Pakistanis needed a ceasefire. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my assessment of the situation right now. I hope it has been of use to you. And I look forward to coming back to you for more and more analysis here on the live updates on Republic Digital.